Welcome you to today's webinar on leadership and development, accomplishing the results you want. I'm going to hand things over to our featured presenter. He is executive leadership coach and professional development consultant, Mr. Brian Ackles. Brian, you now have the floor.
Thank you very much, Kelly, and thank you everyone for joining in this webinar. This is a topic which is talked about extensively in leadership and management research, and it's also talked about extensively in boardrooms and conference rooms around the world. It's always about how do we get things done that we need to get done. So it's accomplishing the results you want, but it's also accomplishing the results that the organization needs you and your team to do. So everything you do as a manager, all the results that you achieve are not results that you achieve. They're results of the achievements of the people that you lead. So what we're going to do in this webinar is introduce some of the skills that managers and leaders need to build effective teams and ensure that the work being done aligns with both your expectations and the expectations of the organization. Again, this is a very multi-faceted topic. There's a lot of different pieces towards this, so we'll touch on some of what I feel are some of the key points. To start the discussion, though, we really need to start looking at the type of leader that you are, and we'll go through these 6 leadership types in a little bit of detail, just to give you a feeling for different types of leaders for different types of situations. So the first type that we'll talk about is the idea of a pace-setting leader. Now, this is the person, the manager or the leader, that is an extraordinarily high performer themselves. They are charging ahead and expecting the team to keep up and follow them. If someone on the team can't keep up, that person is replaced. So one of the challenges of being this type of leader is that it does exhibit a lack of trust in a team. However, there are times when this type of leadership is really key. And this is for teams that require a real minimum of coordination and directions. This is a team of experts that have been working together probably for a long time, very highly motivated, very highly skilled, and moving towards a very particular direction. So that's the pace-setting leader. Moving on to the authoritative leader. This is probably the be-all and end-all of leadership characteristics that we're looking for in most organizations. As a leader, as a manager, if you're in this authoritative style, you're very visionary and you're always looking forward. You're looking to where you want the team to be. You're looking for this future desired state. You're trying to achieve something which has been laid out. You're linking your team's work to the overall vision that you've created with your team, with the overall strategy of the organization, and we'll talk more about strategy later on. The authoritative leader is also very passionate and very inspiring. People want to work for this person. Okay, they're seen as great leaders in organizations. And as I said, this type of leadership is useful in pretty much every team situation. There are some exceptions, and we'll get to that in a minute. Associated with this is the affiliative leader. And this is the leader that has a really high degree of empathy, is really focused on building emotional ties with the team and instilling loyalty in the team, tries to make the team happy. And this is often used, and this is often a characteristic of an authoritative leader as well. There's some affiliative leadership skills in there as well. So this is very good for also working with team members who need some course correction, team members who maybe aren't performing up to this, to their expectations and up to what you as a leader and as a manager know that they could be performing to. So these are the types of skills that an affiliative leader would have. Then you have the coaching leader, and this is really focuses on building for the future. So it's looking at each person's strengths, each person's challenge, looking at their career goals, and really striving to mold or help this person achieve what they want to achieve going forward. Very strong at delegation and very strong at empowerment. The coaching leader is someone that has good coaching skills, of course, someone that perhaps has been trained in coaching skills, and also works good in a situation where people really do want to be coached. So an example of this might be a team of new hires, a new organization that's been spun up, or a new group or a new division that's been spun up within a company, or a startup company where you've got a bunch of new people coming together and they need some sort of a coaching leader to make sure that everybody's working towards their strengths. Then we get into the more authoritative style, or I won't say authoritative, more dictatorial style, which is the coercive leader. So this is really top-down leadership, top-down decision making. This is the leader and the manager that comes and says, all right, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing this other thing. And this is when things need to change. So this is not about, bringing people along, working with them to gain consensus. This is about directive leadership. So, the examples given here, when something needs to be turned around, if there's a hostile takeover situation, and also if there's a situation where, groups or organizations are getting complacent and things are going okay, but not as well as they could be. So to really shock people out of their ways of working. It's also it's a very useful trait when dealing with a challenge employee, a problem employee, when everything else hasn't worked. So if you've gone through coaching, you've gone through mentoring sessions, you've gone through everything you can do to try and change somebody's behavior, you tell them what they have to do. And this is very, very directive, very clear, very blunt. And there are times, and again, for every, in every leader and every manager's tenure, there are times when you have to employ these types of characteristics as well. Then you have the democratic leader. The democratic leader is looking for consensus. They're trying to get everybody to agree. Very inclusive, very time consuming to be in a democratic leadership perspective. And this is when you're trying to find different ways of accomplishing something. So you're working very hard to make sure everybody has the right information, all of the information about what potentially you could be doing or what potentially the group needs to achieve. And it takes a really special person to try and work to seek this type of consensus. And it's also for a very particular style and type of organization as well. When you're really having to explore a number of alternatives and really choose one which everybody will be able to get behind to achieve something great. So the reason I go through and wanted to talk about leadership styles is it's important to understand, one, where you feel your own leadership style is. Also to recognize the characteristics of other leadership styles which you may be able to tap into as needed. Because if you understand how you lead and what your leadership style is, it starts to help you understand how your team might be reacting to. So, given all of that, why do we work? Well, understanding why people work is kind of important if you're managing them and leading them. Some people work for money. Some people work because they enjoy it. Some people work for the power that it gives them. Some people work for the social interaction. Most people work for some combination, some percentage of all of these. We work because we want to work. We work also because we have to work. Most of us have to work anyways, and I'm certainly one of those. So understanding why people work, very, very clear, very key to improving your team's performance. And understanding why people work also ties into, how do you motivate people? How do you motivate people who are interested in the social interaction piece, primarily of why they work? How do you motivate people who are attracted by power and by money? So understanding motivation is something about, it's about getting to know your people individually, getting to understand what they want, why they're there. And the other thing to be clear on, and to be very clear and understanding on, is that different people are motivated in different ways. So some people want a title. I worked with a really, really bright technical guy a bunch of years ago, and what he wanted more than anything else, besides the job satisfaction which he had, was a title that gave him what he felt was his due. He didn't change his work. He got the title. His job didn't change, but he got his title that he wanted. And that was very important to him. And that's fine. Different people react in different ways. Some people want to be thanked in public. Some people hate it. So, very carefully judge how you motivate people. Understand that different cultures react in different ways. And there's a whole lot more we can talk about this, but we'll leave it at a very, very high level at this. So we've talked about leadership. We've talked about a little bit about motivation. We've talked about getting to know your people. And all of this really comes back to also understanding your own communication style. How you say something to somebody and how you speak to them, how you address them, how you interact with them really is equally as important as what you are saying. So your style of communication also needs to adapt to the people that you're communicating with. So you need to have an understanding of what their preferred communication style is as well. And if we look at this scale of dominance versus sociability, so low dominance and low sociability is sort of a reflective style of communication. You get more dominance, and it goes to directive, and then it goes to supportive and emotive. And we'll talk about these in a little bit more detail. So how you communicate, as I said, is really, really important. And understanding how others communicate allows you to adapt to their style. So if you have somebody that is, going back to the previous slide, is very reflective, so very low dominance and very low sociability. So they're kind of you call them an introvert, I guess, if you would. And if they like to communicate sort of one-on-one with somebody that they trust, and it's no good really getting them to do something in a group situation, in a group setting, right? You really need to sit down and work with them one-on-one. If people are more sort of highly sociable and in a high dominance quadrant in this, so they're more in an emotive style of communication, you really need to appeal to their emotions and understand that they need something to support them, to inspire them to work. Very low sociability and high dominance, then you're getting to be more directive. And if people are in this style of communication, you need to be more directive in your communications with them as well. And the same goes for supportive. If people are sort of higher on the sociability scale but lower on the dominance scale, they need to be supported. So, how you interact with them, how you communicate with them needs to be done in a very supportive style. Now, if your style is very emotive, you need to sort of back off on the dominance and really support, provide support to somebody that you're trying to get to do something. So there's all kinds of different permutations and combinations you can look at. But the bottom line is, the better you are able to adapt to somebody else's communication style, the more likely the communication you're trying to give them will be received well. So it's up to you to adapt to others, not to expect them to adapt to you. And that's again a big lesson in management and leadership, is you park your ego at the door and you work with your team and you work with how they are. So understanding all this, understanding motivation, understanding communication skills, understanding your leadership style, that's sort of the background and sort of the core of what you've got to do to really understand, to know your team. Once you know your team, of course, it's also equally important to understand and know the organization and what they expect from you and what they expect from your team. And this is where strategy really comes into play. All organizations have some type of strategic plan. Whether it's a great plan or not, there is still a strategy in place about what the organization is trying to achieve. And it's the process really of analyzing what it would take to achieve what you want. So, the organizations are looking towards the future, sort of a 3 to 5 year plan looking out. The organization I work with very closely is in the middle of doing this now. We've actually been working on this for about a year and a half, and we're about to launch our new strategy to the staff of the organization within the next about 2 months or so. And it's about our plan for moving into the future. So it's not Strategy is not about the planning itself. Plans are put in place to help achieve the strategy, to achieve the strategic goals. So if you think about this, the strategic goals of the organization is really why you're working there and why your team is working there. But the other thing about strategy that you also have to understand is in this particular market that we're in, and in this time, particularly in technology of rapid technical innovation, and it's sort of topical, particularly since CES just ended. There are so many things out there that are changing, and the change is becoming faster and faster and faster. So strategy will also change as you're working through things with your team. So what you may be working on and what you may be inspiring people to do may be something that will have to be parked and changed or have a changed direction because strategy will change. So the bottom line of this is strategy is also risk. It's risk to the organization, and it's risk to your team. People have to understand that there is risk in pursuing something. And that's all part of your communication style. It's all part of your leadership skills as well. So how do we link strategy to results? So you need to build that bridge as a manager between what the organizational strategy is and what the work is that actually has to get done to support that strategy. So everybody that works in any part of the organization will be contributing to the strategic goals of the organization. There should not be any exception to this. If someone is working in the organization that does not have a direct link to strategy, then there really shouldn't be there. Now, everybody, without exception, can link to a strategy in an organization. From the people that greet your customers and greet employees at the door, whether it's a receptionist, whether it's however it's structured in your organization. That person sets the tone for how people work. If it's the people working in a warehouse, even the people that are sweeping the floors in the warehouse, how do they link to strategy? Well, if a warehouse is kept clean, then when you go in to find something, or if the people working in the warehouse are picking stock and sending it out to customers, they're working in an environment which helps them achieve better results. So everybody has a place in the organization. Everybody contributes to the strategy of the organization without exception. So linking your strategy to operations is really about, again, understanding the work that you are responsible for, and that's the communications that you're having with your leadership to make sure that you understand what the expectation is on you and your team or your teams. So the questions that you need to ask: is the work that my team is doing related to the strategic goals of the organization? So you take a good hard look at what your team is doing, and does it relate to the strategic goals? Is there work that we've been asked to do that doesn't seem to fit the direction of the organization? And if the answer to that is yes, then it's not that you would stop doing the work. You would need to explore why the work has been asked of you. And there is perhaps something that you have missed in your understanding of how it supports the strategy. Or as you bring this up to your leadership and bring it up to the people that have directed you and your teams to accomplish this, that they may realize that, why are we doing this, and stop you from doing it, and focus your team's effort on something which is really aligned to what you're trying to do. The third question is there a link between your performance management and achieving the goals linked to the strategy? So are you rewarding people for the work that they're doing? Are you managing their performance based on the achievement of their work outputs, their achievements linked to the strategy? Is your pay for performance systems set up that way? Is your bonus system, is your employee advancement, is your training system set up for this? And finally, is there a common understanding within the team of how their work relates to the strategy? You should be able to ask any of your team members, any of the people that work with you, ask them what they're doing, and ask them, how does this relate to the strategic goals of the organization? If they can't answer you, that means it's not clear to them. And that's something which you can work with them. And it's not that everybody's going to have this top of mind. You may have to have a discussion with them again, remind them of strategy, remind them of the vision of the organization and the vision of your team. But all of this is a constant conversation that you're having, because you're always wanting to reinforce with your team the work that they're doing and how it relates to the strategic direction of the organization. Because again, this is a powerful motivator for everybody. They understand that they're contributing to something which is bigger than themselves. So to do all of this, of course, we need a strong team. And strong teams have some certain key elements. They certainly have a shared purpose, trust, respect, leadership, clear goals, and the right tools. So this shared sense of purpose, this is something which is developed and agreed on with the team. So you're talking with the team, you're discussing, you're working with the team, you're discussing the overall strategic goals, you're discussing, the pieces of work that you're doing that support those goals. So there's a clear link to the purpose and what's being tried to achieve. Achievable goals are things that drive the team forward if they can see that they can accomplish the things that are being asked of them. Those are achievable goals. And as you start to achieve certain points, certain milestones on the way to those goals, that those two become motivators, and they become powerful. They become a powerful tool to drive the team forward. And again, helping you achieve the results that you want. You need to have leadership which truly cares about the people on the team. And this doesn't mean that you as a manager and a leader need to be the team's best friend. That's not what we're talking about. But you do care about them. You feel that you need to make sure that they've got everything that they need to do the very best possible job. You share information with them. You adapt to their changing situations, both work-wise and personally. You're not prescriptive in treating people exactly the same way. There has to be some give and take based on personalities, based on situations. And I can give an example of that. This morning, I got an email from one of my supervisors. He has to stay at home because his child is sick with the flu. So this person will work from home today, which is fine. And my response to him is, I have no problem with you working from home. That's great, and I really hope that your kid gets over the flu quickly. Not because it's important to me to have my guy back at work, but because I, like everybody else, I really hate to see a child with the flu, and this has been a particularly bad year for it. So I care about the people that work for me, and I try and exemplify that in everything that I do. You as a leader and you as a manager should be trying to show that level of caring and empathy as well. And it all comes down to mutual respect. I have a very clear message to everybody that I work with. You're in your jobs because I believe, truly and strongly believe, that you are the best person to be doing this job. And I will do everything in my power to help you do that. But I also need you to take accountability and be responsible for the work you're doing. And that to some people is a bit challenging because they maybe come from a micromanaged background. But I respect them because they're doing the job that I want them to do, and they in turn will come to respect me if they don't already. And otherwise we'll have other discussions. But I also trust that the team will support each other. And I think the biggest win that you can have as a manager and a leader is when you see your team solving a problem themselves, or without coming to you, or they come to you afterwards and say, yeah, we had this issue, we had this problem, but we talked about it, and this is how we're going to address it. So your job in this is to say, well done, support that, of course, make sure that their solution is in line with everything else if they've come to you with this. But it shows that the team is working to support each other. And finally, it's also about the tools that they need to succeed. So again, that shared sense of purpose, clear understanding of direction of the organization, and a knowledge of the direct linkage between the work to be done and the strategy. And I can't emphasize enough to make sure that your team has the right tools to get the job done. One of the worst things you can do is ask your teams to work on something, to do something, and not give them the right applications, the right physical tools, the right processes, the right access to information, all kinds of the different tools that people need. And if you see challenges with some of the processes, or you see challenges with the applications, they're not doing what they need to do, it's your job as a manager and a leader to make sure that you go out and you help them correct that. You go work with the organization to get the right tools for these people to do their jobs. It's difficult to do your job if you haven't got the right tools for it. And I think we can all pretty much agree with that. So now we've got teams that know what they're doing. You've got teams that understand the strategy, they understand the work. Now you've got to influence them to do something that you need them to do. So this is what influence is: getting others to do something you want them to do, and getting people to believe something you want them to believe. And this really comes back to, do people believe in the strategic direction of the organization? Do they believe in the job that they're doing? And one thing about influence is that it is very culturally specific, and understanding what influences one culture will not work within another culture. And techniques to influence can be learned. And this is important. There are two types of influence, and we're just really touching at a very satellite level view on influence here. But there are two types of influence. There's ethical and there's unethical influence. Ethical influence is when you're working with someone who consents to being influenced. And think about that. So I don't know if you've ever thought about, do I actually want to be influenced to do something? Well, if you're working and you're working within an organization, you're working with a team, you're working with a good manager, then that manager, you've consented for that manager to influence you to do a particular set of tasks, to take on a particular project, to work on a particular problem or a particular issue, and they're influencing you to do it in a particular way. Unethical influence is what we never ever want to see in an organization, of course. This is when people are being bullied, they're being lied to, they're being threatened. This is absolutely and utterly unethical within organizations, and most organizations actually have policies to stop this, in particular policies around bullying, policies around physical threats, verbal threats, physical threats, etc., or even emotional threats. So again, we're always looking to take the ethical high road here and influence people that are consenting to be influenced. So according to some research by this guy, Terry Bacon, influencing techniques fall into four key categories: communication and reasoning, assertiveness, interpersonal, and interactive. And we'll touch on all four of these. So communication and reasoning techniques. So first and foremost, do you ask good questions as a manager and as a leader? So if you're talking to your team and you're working with them, are you asking them questions which are open-ended or closed-ended? Open-ended questions will elicit more sort of a more introspective response from your team members. They'll have to think about an answer. Closed-ended questions are the yes/no questions. And yes/no questions maybe aren't as good for influencing as open-ended questions. Can you present a clear and logical argument for a particular course of action? And this has got to be, you think about this when you're structuring a discussion and you're structuring an argument with somebody about why something should be done. I was in a meeting yesterday afternoon where my boss and I were in a conference room, and we had the three other participants in the meeting. We're all on a conference audio bridge. And my boss and I muted the phone and basically said, okay, we're going to let them talk themselves into what they need to do. We had presented the case. We presented, the challenge and the problem that the conference call was set up to deal with. We left it to them then to essentially come to the solution on their own. And they did. But it was because we set up a very clear and logical argument for why we had to do something. They just had to find the way within the organizational processes to allow this to happen. And they did. After a period of time, they convinced themselves on a particular course of action which satisfied all of us. The next part of communication and reasoning techniques, are you comfortable making conversation on a wide range of topics, or are you very narrowly focused on one particular thing? Being able to talk about a wide range of topics shows, one, that you're interested in the world around you, that you're interested in the organization around you, and that you are able to integrate information from a wide range of sources into your communication, into your discussions. Being very clearly or very narrowly focused only on one topic or one or two topics means that you are potentially missing out on information from a wider range of sources, which may have influenced your opinion or but may influence you on how you view a particular topic. And last and most important, I think, is, do you listen? Do you truly listen when other people speak? And listening, as we know, is a skill that can be learned and must be constantly practiced. Listening is about turning your inner monkey off and concentrating on what people are saying and not concentrating on what you're going to respond when they finish speaking. The good listener truly listens to what people are saying, and they pause before they respond at the break in the conversation so that they can integrate that information and make a response. This pause is very quick, by the way. It's maybe a second or two, because you don't want to make it an uncomfortable pause in a conversation. But you have to work at truly listening, because it's very, very easy to fall into the trap or fall into the habit of formulating a response while somebody is speaking. So you need to listen well. And this is a key component of good communication and reasoning techniques. So the next part is assertiveness. So being assertive doesn't mean, again, being a bully. Being assertive means being persistent, being self-confident, and using assertive body language. Control and use your voice in conversation. Have an open posture, but not rigid. Your actions aren't jerky. They're not, you're not looking nervous. So all of this comes into being assertive. I think probably the key to this is really the first 2 points, is being persistent and being self-confident. Being self-confident means you truly believe in what you're trying to influence somebody else to do. If you don't believe it, it's like it's like a salesperson. A salesperson that does not believe in their product is not a very good sale. They don't sell a lot of the product because they don't believe in it themselves. If they're selling a good product that they believe in, they're selling a lot of that product. Same with selling or influencing people to do the work that they need to do to achieve the results that you need to achieve and that the organization needs to achieve. Your interpersonal skills and your interpersonal competencies. So the better you are at interpersonal situations, the better you are in working with people, empathizing with people, talking to strangers, forming relationships that build good rapport, forming honest relationships across a wide range within the organization, the better off that you're going to be able to communicate and work with the team and provide information to the team, and also support the team when something needs to change, because you've built a relationship with them. People trust you. People respect you. People know that what you're telling them is truth, that you're being honest with them, and when something is going differently than what you anticipated, you will tell them, and you'll explain why, and you'll work with them to find a way to adapt to a changing situation. So these interpersonal skills are also key to influence, because if you have these skills, then when something does change, and remember we said strategy is risk, strategies can change. So if strategies change, that means that the work that your team is doing may change to support that new strategy, or that new strategic direction. So if you have good interpersonal skills, you can drive that change through the organization and through your organization, and the team will follow along with you, and the team will look for ways to support that change, and will look for ways to support that change in strategic direction. Change is absolutely inevitable in organizations. And I think interpersonal skills within management and leadership provide really the foundation of change management, and getting your teams to accept the change, embrace the change, and actually relish the change as it happens. And finally, your interactive skills. How good are you at talking to people? How good are you at interacting with a wide range of people and a wide range of communication styles? And again, this comes back to what we talked about earlier. You need to be able to adapt to different people's communication styles. You need to be able to adapt your leadership skills to different types of situations as well. We go right back to the beginning of this webinar when we talked about, your leadership styles and the pace-setting leader, the authoritative leader, the affiliative leader, the coercive leader, the coaching leader. All of these skills, do have a place somewhere within your management toolkit. Now, again, all of these skills come together when you're trying to build an agreement or a consensus on a course of action. Now, again, a consensus is not meaning that everybody is going to be 100% democratically behind what you're doing. It's not a full yay, but they agree that this is the way we need to go. So again, the team agrees with you, or the person agrees with you that, they want to get to this future desired state to support the strategy, to get the work done that needs to get done. And your skills on working with them and discussing this with them, your interactive skills, your body language, all of this come together to help build this consensus or this agreement. And negotiation skills are really a key component of the skill set. How good are you at negotiating? How good are you at resolving conflicts within teams? Because again, as I said before, change is inevitable and change does create conflict. So as a leader and as an influencer in the organization, you need to be able to resolve these conflicts and get people moving forward and get them moving to where you need them to be. So there are certain phases of negotiation: presenting information, ensuring people are understanding the information, discuss the issue, set expectations, find the common ground, get an agreement, restate the agreement, document the result, and find out what the next steps are. So 3 very, very overall bullets: information sharing, discussion, and conclusion. Now, negotiation skills are a topic in and of themselves as well. Understand that you do need to be a good negotiator to be a good manager, to be a good leader, because you're always negotiating for resources, you're always negotiating for access to information, for time, money, whatever. So you need to understand how to negotiate in a positive and effective way. And again, ethical influence, ethical negotiation, we're always looking for the win-win solutions in everything that we do within business and within management. So before we leave this whole piece, fundamentally what this comes down to is delegation of work. Your management team, your executive team has given you work to do. There's an expectation of a problem to be solved, a project to be delivered, issues to be resolved, a new customer to be brought on board. The list is endless. Bottom line is you've been given and empowered with the task from your management team to get something done. So the only way you're going to get something done is if your team gets that done for you. So you need to find a way of empowering them to do the work without driving down into micromanagement. And again, you're trusting the people to do the work that they were hired to do. So empowering delegation, planning, validating assumptions, capability assessment, workload management, delegation, confirmation, monitoring, and follow-up. These are the gross pieces of an empowering delegation process. So if we look at planning the work, so of course we have to plan the work. I have a project management background for a lot of years. And one of the things that's drilled into you as a project manager, of course, is that you need to have some kind of a plan before you can actually move forward. And if you don't have a plan, then it's going to be chaos, and you're never really going to know what you're going to be delivering. So planning the work is also understanding and validating what your goals are. And the next part of this, of course, comes into validating the assumptions that you're working with. So I assume that if you're bringing, say you're onboarding a new customer into a call center environment, as an example, you're assuming that you know what this customer's needs are, or you assume that there's been a needs assessment done. You assume maybe that's part of your assumptions. Part of your assumptions might be that everybody in the customer organization is fully behind being onboarded into your call center. All of these things become assumptions that you need to validate. Once you've planned the work, you've validated the assumption, then you start looking around your team to say, can we actually do this? Do we have the skill sets to do this? Do we have the capability within the team to do this? And this is tightly coupled with workload management, because workload management, your teams aren't sitting around idly waiting for the next thing to show up. If you're in any type of organization in technology or otherwise, there's always more work than there is capability of doing it, than people are actually capable of doing. I mean, we hear the horror stories of people working 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 hours a week, and people shouldn't have to work that hard if it's managed properly. They shouldn't have to work that number of hours. So workload management really becomes key in an empowering delegation process, because you have to understand what people are working on. Are they capable of taking on more? And then the delegation process itself. And the delegation process is you're discussing the work with somebody. You're discussing the work with them very clearly, and so that they have a good understanding of what the tasks are that they need to do. They're repeating that back to you. You're getting their affirmation that yes, they understand what they're being asked to do, and they're confirming back that they can actually do the work. So this is all part of a delegation process. Then the confirmation part of empowering delegation, again, reconfirming that people understand the work, people understand the time frames involved, people understand the tools that they need to have, or that they've got access to do the work, that the processes that they may have to follow to get the work done, the other team members, and they understand how the other team members are contributing to this work as well. So all of that is a confirmation of all the elements that make up an empowering delegation of a task or an activity of work that has to get done. And again, you're doing this as a manager and a leader because you're not going to be driving and micromanaging this task and this work that has to be done. You're delegating it and you're empowering other people to do the work. So you've got to make sure that they have all the information that they need. So this is what part of this whole process is it's all, as I said, planning, validating, assessment, workload management, delegation, and confirmation. The confirmation piece is really a check and balance for you as a manager and a leader to say, okay, yeah, they've got the tools that they need to do the work. I've given them all the information I have, and now I'm going to move into, okay, so we'll set up a monitoring routine. How often do I need to report to my leaders, to my management team? And what do I have to do to follow up? So this is the whole process, and it's something that, again, you have to work at. You have to understand your team members, and it goes right back to the beginning of this webinar. Again, you understand your leadership, how you deal with people, how you communicate with people, how you influence people, how you negotiate with people. And all this results in this empowering delegation process that gets people doing the work that you need them to do. And the most important part of this is the follow-up. And this is the part that gets left out at the end of most parts of a delegation. Reviewing the work to be done. We talked about, earlier in the webinar about performance management systems, and your performance management systems linked to the strategic goals of the organization. So in your follow-up, you're looking at how people performed in the work and how well that work contributed towards the strategy. You're encouraging people to review their own work with you and you're asking them for suggestions and ideas on what they would do differently next time. Maybe they weren't as completely satisfied with their own performance as they could have been. You might have been happy with it, but they feel they might have been able to do better. So enter into a discussion with them. find out where they feel they may be able to change or do things differently. And also, as a result of completing a task and completing some work and some activities or a project, they may have learned something new and very valuable to the organization, which may set them up for an increased challenge or a different type of work assignment. So again, this follow-up piece in the whole delegation process is really important, both for your team's well-being, but also for the organization's well-being. And again, following on to, this is what's going to drive you forward to continue to achieve the results that you want. Aristotle puts it best: the whole is more than the sum of the parts. If you have a team that is working well together as a team, that output from the team is going to be far better than the outputs of the individuals within the team on their own. So the team has to work together. You're working with the team, and together you're going to achieve what you need, what the organization needs, and you will be able to move forward. There's a lot of skills here that we've talked about that we've just really brushed on. There's a lot of skills that can be developed. There's a lot of skills that can be practiced, and these are skills that can be learned. You can get better at all of them. This is a lifetime learning process as a manager and as a leader. No one is born into this. These are things that you learn how to do and that you learn how to get good at. With that, I will say thank you. Thank you for your time today to talk about leadership, to talk about management, and to talk about achieving the results that you want.
Thank you so much, Brian. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. If you guys have any questions for Brian, please stay on the line and go ahead and ask those. We will address them over audio. I wanted to send a quick reminder that you will be receiving a recording link to review today's session, as well as the slide deck, so you can review any of the slides as well. So you guys should be receiving that later today. Also, I'd like to encourage you to reach out to your local New Horizons representative if you are interested in any of the material that was presented in this webinar or any of our available course offerings. If you are not familiar with who your local New Horizons is, you can log on to newhorizons.com and do a zip code search to find the center nearest you. All right, and Brian, we did have a couple questions. The first one is, do you have any metrics about which leadership style has been the most effective in change management initiatives?
I don't have any clear metrics on it, but I know just from my own personal experience over more years than I care to mention, but it's beyond 25, that authoritative leaders and coaching leaders, those types of management styles tend to work better in change management, particularly in change management areas and initiatives. And the reason being that an authoritative leader is trusted, right? They've gained the respect of their team. And the coaching manager is able to work very closely with individuals to understand what their challenges and what their needs and desires would be, and also in a change situation where the fear is coming from, and being able to work with them to overcome or gain a better understanding of what the change will be. It is a good question on metrics, and it is something that I'll actually look up.
All right, thanks, Brian. And it looks like that's going to wrap it up for our questions today. Oh, we got one more in. Hold on one second.
Sure.
What about inspirational or transformational leaders? What is their role and how do they impact an organization and team?
So inspirational leaders are the people, and transformational leaders, I mean, these are the leaders that are setting the grander strategy, right? These are people that are really driving an organization forward. And that type of leadership really can take a team that may be unsure of where they're going and set them on a path of something new. But again, the discussions and what these types of leaders are doing is they're taking a team of people and they're creating a vision of some greater future. They're creating a vision of this is what it's going to look like in the future when we get there. This is our future desired state. This is where we want to be. This is why I'm so excited about it. This is, the great things that are happening. And people are inspired by the need to follow these people, because again, they are truly inspirational people, and they've got a reputation for transformation. So with all of this, they're trusted. People see them as the guiding lights, if you will, and they will follow them to the ends of the earth as long as they can articulate the vision, and as long as they can continue to be true to what they're communicating and what they believe in.
All right. And how have you personally dealt with people who can derail conversations and hijack meetings?
Yes, that's a good one, because it happens all the time, of course. I'll take it in the hijack meetings part of it. So one of the things to be very clear about in a meeting is to actually very professionally, politely, and politely shut somebody down. If someone is trying to derail the conversation and go off topic, if it's a meeting that I've called, I will simply ask that person to say, "Listen, a really great point, really not relevant to what we're talking about now. Why don't you come see me, and we can talk about it one-on-one and figure out what we have to do, and just stop it from happening." And if they keep doing it, you just keep doing the same thing and said, "This is not the focus of what we're here for. We'll talk about this later. We'll talk about it one-on-one in my office." And just keep being very persistent on this until they stop trying to derail the meeting. And it's the same thing on anybody trying to derail a conversation that you're trying to have. If it's not germane, if what they're saying is not germane to what you're doing, to what you're talking about, to what you're trying to achieve, just stop it. Be very upfront about it. Be very professional and polite about it. But stop it and this gets people thinking that, okay, we really should be only talking about what we're supposed to be talking about here.
All right, great advice. All right, well, I think we can go ahead and wrap up today's session. So Brian, thank you again so much for joining us and speaking on behalf of New Horizons today.
My absolute pleasure, Kelly.
And thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. I hope you will join us for future webinars. And again, please feel free to reach out to your local New Horizons representative for further information on our Leadership and Development Program. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.